Hello, scientists. In class, we've looked at some data about why cells divide rather than continuing to grow, or why it's better to have more smaller cells versus fewer larger cells. Our big idea for this lesson is that cells grow to a size that is efficient. So instead of growing larger, they will divide. We have cells that range from small bacteria, which are 1 micrometer across, or 1 times 10 to the minus 6 meters, all the way up to an ostrich egg, which is 180 centimeters. So cells that we need powerful microscopes to see, and cells that are so big we can barely hold them in our hand. Most animal cells are about 50 micrometers. So somewhere in between those two extremes. If we remember back, we know that DNA is stored in the nucleus, and we think about the nucleus as the control center of the cell. The DNA provides the directions to create all the things that keep the cell running and doing its job. But if the cell gets too big, the nucleus cannot manage it all. There aren't enough directions, or we can't get those directions around efficiently enough for the cell to function properly. One piece of evidence that we have for this is in muscle cells, like our own muscle cells. So muscle cells are pretty long, they're about 1 to 40 millimeters, and they have many nuclei along their length. You can see the image here, they're kind of long, sort of tubular, and I've drawn the nuclei in as the dark circles. And so we observed that in these muscle cells, these long muscle cells with multiple nuclei, each nucleus controls one area of the cell. So we have to have long cells because of the function these cells perform, but we have evolved so that each cell has multiple nuclei because one would not be sufficient. An analogy for this is that if we think about the cell as a classroom, and we think about the nucleus as a teacher, going back to our cell analogies, it's easier for a teacher to teach a smaller class because she can interact with all of the students. Right? If the class was too big, she wouldn't be able to get around to talk to everybody or give everyone the help that they needed. Our second reason why cells divide instead of growing larger has to do with the exchange of materials in and out of the cell. If we have cells that are too big, it takes too long for materials such as sugar, water, oxygen, and waste to get in and out of the cells. There's too much space in the middle, and so by the time you've gone through the whole cell and then gotten out, it just takes too long. And so analogy for this is if I'm a teacher and I have a class of 100 students, right, a big class for a big cell, it's going to take me a long time to pass out paper to everyone or collect papers from everyone, versus if I have a class of 10 or 12, it's much more efficient and it takes much less time to pass out papers or to collect papers. So while there are many reasons why cells divide instead of growing larger from an evolutionary perspective, and ease in transport of materials, and then efficiency in the DNA and the nucleus being able to control the cell are two major ones. That's it for today. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments or stop by office hours.